So I just got the Ortur Y-axis rotary chuck for the laser engraver. So what this is going to allow me to do is essentially chuck in some type of like round object and then have the laser be able to engrave all the way around that object. And so obviously this is a guitar channel. We want to be able to engrave on something that's guitar related. So what I thought was we can do a couple of things with this little guy. First, let's do an unboxing. Let's assemble it. Let's install it. Let's make sure everything's working. And then we can get to work on actually engraving. Looks like we have our manual, which we will need because I'm not really sure how to set this up. So we'll definitely read this. And then here we have our gorgeous Y-axis chuck. Oh my goodness. So my favorite thing about Ortur is like the way they compartmentalize everything and put everything in these tiny little pockets. I'm really digging when they put all their cool stuff in these tiny little boxes. They're so cute. Not sure what this is, some kind of assembly. And then we have very delicate cables. I don't want to lose these. Oh, wow. Okay, there's like a kind of fabric ruler here. I'm not really sure what to call this, but it's like a ruler of sorts. And then we have our actual chuck in here, and it's heavy. Like, wow. This is a pretty high quality piece of hardware. I mean, it's got some serious weight to it. It's all extruded aluminum. It's really beautiful. And then we have some more cables that probably hook up to the kind of the main laser system. I'm not really sure yet. The Ortur Y-axis chuck it's all aluminum, and it's a piece of cake to assemble. There are very few parts. Really comes down to just putting in the thumb screws. Assembling the chuck, and then start engraving. So I know this is a guitar channel and I want to focus on guitar items, but I really needed to cut my teeth. So I had some things laying around the house. I had some stainless steel tumblers, terracotta pots, and I was really trying to dial in the speeds and the power settings, and also really understand what the engraving looks like on different materials, like thinking of things in terms of inverse. Like, for example, this skull is kind of backwards, right? Like the dark parts should be dark and the light parts should be light. Those are kind of things I worked out and figured out just by doing them. And I was really happy with the results on different materials and really trying to understand like what the laser can do for me. And I had some really remarkable tests, and they were just tests on, again, things laying around the house. In this case, I tested out this ring, which was made of tungsten. And tungsten is an interesting material because it's really highly reflective, and I didn't think it would work. And it also absorbs and distributes heat, like tungsten as a material is known for that. So I didn't think the diode laser would do a single thing. I didn't think it would scratch it. But it turns out it did really well, considering this was highly reflective piece of material and there was nothing else added to it. It just straight onto the laser. So I eventually wanted to engrave on some glass guitar slides, and I needed to once again kind of test some settings. So I found some things around the house to test the power and speed settings on some glass. And I went way too hot. So hot that it actually cracked the glass. So, you have to run these kind of tests to kind of figure out what's going on. But under magnification, it's really quite beautiful to see what the laser's doing to glass. It's essentially heating it up so much that you're getting these kind of micro cracks. At least that's what it looks like to me. So from an unmagnified view, it's kind of frosty, but when you look at it in the light, there are all these gorgeous, beautiful, tiny little cracks, which can, of course, lead to very major big cracks. So it really does help to run some tests and kind of figure out what your power settings need to be. So I did want to try on a glass slide. This is a nice glass slide, and I ran my tests. So the first thing to do is to spray it. So according to the internet, you need to use cold galvanizing compound. Because the glass is transparent and reflective, the laser won't really do much. It'll just kind of shoot right through, so you need to opaque the glass in some manner. The other thing, notice that the light is spilling through the glass, so I would recommend painting the entire thing, not just the portion that you want to engrave, because that light is refracting and reflecting everywhere. So you gotta be sure to wear your protective glasses. But in the end, of course, it did mark the glass pretty well. This is a maze logo, and under magnification, you can see that, again, it's going through the glass, creating these kind of micro cracks. And unfortunately, I actually did get one big major crack. It kind of looks like it was melting the glass in some places. I think those black marks are like melted glass. And there's my crack. But under unmagnified light, you can see it's leaving a frosted effect. And this is what's happening to all glass. It just does this kind of frosting effect, but that frosting is just micro cracks. So now we're going to try a brass slide. Now, brass is also a highly reflective material. You can't just laser it. You got to coat it. And this is the Brilliance spray that I got on Amazon. And this actually puts a mark on it. And this one worked really well. So I recommend with any metal that's highly reflective to use the Brilliance spray, because look at that. Look at the detail in that. The only issue is because it's brass, it tarnishes. So the Brilliance spray tarnished the brass, and now I have to figure out a way to polish the brass back up to a shine without impacting the logo. My first test of the knob was really conservative, so I did not use high settings. I was just doing an outline test remarkably fast, and it came out exactly the way I anticipated. It actually did a great job. And so then I decided to do the inverse. Like, instead of doing the outline, let's engrave the fill shape. And this one came out even better. There's a certain texture that's applied to it by the laser that's just remarkable. So I think this is where the Y-axis chuck really shines. These knobs were made kind of years ago. I think they're just dowels. So their dowels aren't completely perfectly round. They're not circles. They're almost oval in shape. And the Y-axis chuck in the laser doesn't care. Like, even if it's not a perfect circle, it's going to do a great engraving job no matter what. And this was a test for just doing the outline. And I kind of like this kind of tortoise shell look. These are Voronoi patterns, which are automatically generated. So my first test with these knobs was to engrave this Voronoi pattern on here. And it worked out pretty good. I was obviously really conservative with my settings, so it's not that deep of a cut or engraving. So what I did the second time was try something different, try sort of the inverse of it, right? And this one is just fabulous. It came out amazing. So as a guitar knob, it's got these plastic inserts that I buy. And the really cool thing about the Ortur Y-axis chuck is that this knob was handmade. I think I did this on the drill press, so I did not do this on the CNC. It's not perfectly circular, and it doesn't have to be. Like, it's almost like an egg shaped, and the laser doesn't care. Like, it'll still engrave just a beautiful pattern, and it's just amazing. Like, it's so gorgeous. But I wanted to go deeper, right? I wanted to get that kind of like cell action where you can, like, each one of these cells was like a little cave. So I did a second one. And this one is quite a bit deeper. And it's also got this really cool texture you really can't get any other way. And it's tactile, so you can grab it and you have like this grip. So super cool. So then I thought, well, let's go the opposite again, but do it properly, right? So instead of doing like the fill, let's do the outline. So then I did this one. And this one came out way, way better. So in this case, it's filling the outline, or, like cutting into the outline. You can't go wrong with these knobs. Like, they just look so good, and you could do all sorts of really cool patterns with this Y-axis chuck. And you get the most interesting details in them as well. Now, the other cool thing I did that was a little bit different was I finished these knobs before putting them on the laser. So these were finished in, I think, a lacquer. So I was just using a water-based lacquer on these, and they were polished, lacquered. They're super shiny. And so when I was doing the laser engraving, you get this mixture of textures. You have the kind of rough, dark texture of the inside that the laser creates, but then you have the finished thin line on the knob. And you can't get that result unless you put your finish on first. So really cool proof of concept. I really do think that there's a lot of opportunity to do all sorts of interesting things on the laser. Because I'm only using this for the Y-axis chuck, I didn't engrave like the top of the knob. But if you can imagine like putting an engraving on the top as well as around it, that would be totally killer. And that's not for a project today. Again, I'm just trying to illustrate what you can do with the Y-axis chuck. There you go. Pretty sweet knobs. Thanks for watching. Take it easy.